Hello, everyone, and this is John with John Menarsic Fine Art. I hope everybody has had a really good weekend. The weather, I don't know about where you're at, but on the western suburbs of Chicago, and Saturday and Sunday have been absolutely beautiful out. Anyways, here's another oil painting. It's on a piece of Ampersand Gessobord, the 1/8 inch thickness. It's an 11 by 14. As you can see, it's got a lot of stuff on it before that's dried. It was a failed painting that I knew was a bad painting, probably halfway into it. So it was pretty obvious. It wasn't going to cut the mustard, as they say. So I just wiped it off and let it dry. And now I get to use it again. So I'm using olive green and Payne's gray. And it's watered down big time, not with water, but with the Alkyd, walnut Alkyd medium from M. Graham. And I just want to do the little sketch out here. Just get an idea where I'm going to have little elements. And, as I'm sketching, ideas come to my head, see what happens, see where we're going. And like I have told you before, I don't do all my paintings like this, but a decent amount. Half, maybe. I guess that'd be accurate. I like painting from life. I like painting from reference material. I like painting from ideas other people have at times. But there's a lot of times I just love creating off the cusp. I have no idea where we're going when we start, and then it just goes from there. And it's a lot of fun to do it that way. So whichever way, if it intimidates you a little bit, just kind of making stuff up as you go, reference photographs, no problem. Many people use those. Most, I would say, probably. So, okay, here I am putting on the sky, obviously. Now, if you notice, the sky is the first time I'm putting on the paint in a more paint than medium, mixture. And now we're starting, the colors. So I'm just putting a little bit more French ultramarine in the sky. It was a little too gray and a little too white for me before. I like a little bit of blue, and especially with how blue the water is. Sorry, I hit the tripod. I had a very long weekend, a very good one, but long one. We did some yard work, and we did a lot of errands running around, so my wife and I are pretty tired. So I'm doing this video, and I'm kind of getting clumsy and bumping into things. It's like, doggone it. So anyways, I'm doing the mountain here. Now, when I'm doing the mountain at this stage, I believe the mountain is going to have not the focal point, but a prominent part of the painting. And when I finish the painting, it's almost non-existent. You can barely even see it. You really have to look. The only way, if nobody saw me painting this, they would not know the mountain was there. That wasn't intention. It just kind of happened that way. I went crazy with the forest. When I put the forest and the trees in, the mountain just got buried. It just, went away in the distance. So, I liked it the way I had it. The mountain was good. But sometimes you just change things as you go. One of the things that I wanted to do with this particular painting, too, I wanted to use a little thicker paint. I like thick paint anyways, but I wanted to go even a little bit more so. Maybe not so much with a palette knife, but with a brush. I like palette knife work, but I prefer the way brush strokes look instead. So right now, our part with the Alkyd medium is over. I use that for the initial lay-in. I do not use the medium again throughout the entire painting. Okay, it's over. And that's pretty much the way I like to paint. I'll use it in the beginning to sketch, rough in shapes and things like that. Kind of get an idea of where things are going. And then once I have that idea in my head, then I go with the thick paint and just get everything blocked in really nice and then go from there. So you can see, obviously, we're going to have a waterfall in this. Big surprise, right? If you haven't seen my channel, I'm guessing, 90% of my paintings have waterfalls in them. I think every one of them has fresh water in it. Since I'm from the Midwest and I never lived on the coast anywhere, I only saw the ocean, I don't know, I was in my late 30s maybe. First time I saw the ocean, saw it with my brother on a vacation. It was the Pacific, the North Pacific by Washington State. And don't get me wrong, the ocean was beautiful. I just never lived there and was able to really get enough feel for it to paint it. But being from the Midwest, we got fresh water and forest reserves and everything all over the place. So, and that's kind of where it is. Plus, water always relaxed me. So this mountain, I'm making the highlights a little more faint, as you can see. Okay, the range on the left is bigger, and it's also, the highlight is the same color now, but the value is much brighter than it is on the one on the right. And that's just because I want to put the one on the right back a little bit. And then when I start putting in the trees, which is going to be shortly, that's going to knock everything off anyway, so it's not really going to matter. I'm putting in the grass now, basically the pasture, I should say. And I'm doing that just to make sure that when I lay the trees in, I don't have to try and put the brush between the trees to make believable grass. Doing the same thing here. You can see all the streakiness of the color I laid in there. Now I'm just tapping in. I'm not even using extra paint from the palette. I'm using the thick paint that I put on. And I'm just giving it the correct texture. So now, other than the water, which actually doesn't look bad the way it is, other than the water, everything is laid in pretty much the right way. Yeah, I'm going to be second guessing myself. I like the forest I put in, but I do like that range, the way it goes from right to left and back to front like that up to the waterfall. So I'm going to be second guessing myself a lot on whether or not I should have left the mountains in and did very little with the forest, or did it the way that I ended up doing it. I don't second guess myself a lot on my paintings, but there are times I do. So, I mean, I think every artist does. You got an idea in your head as you're going, you go with it, and then you got another idea, and then you kind of slam on the brakes, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, should I have done that? So if that happens to you, don't worry about it. That's normal. You know, the painting still turned out nice. It's a nice looking painting, so it's not like, it was a waste. It just wasn't the composition that I had in mind when I started laying in all those shapes and stuff. Clouds, I found a nice way to do it that I really enjoy. I just tap them in like you see with the fan brush. Those Payne's Gray, I was tapping in underneath just for a little shadow and a little color in there to go with the white. And then I take a very dry brush. Okay, it's a bristle brush and very dry. And basically what I'm doing, getting the bristles out of there that fall off, is it's hard to tell here, but I'm barely touching the surface, okay? It's extremely light, and what that does is it moves the paint around. It doesn't blend it with the wet paint underneath. Okay, don't want to blend it, then it's going to be a new color. I want the clouds to stand out, so you just want to move the paint around, manipulate that paint into the shapes you're looking for, and you do that with an extremely light touch. The late, great Bob Ross used to call it 3 hairs and some air, and he was very correct with that. Yep, I already regret it now. I like the way this looks as is. Obviously not finished, but I like that mountain range. And then once that waterfall goes in, that would have made it a nice composition. But here I am going tree crazy. And don't get me wrong, I love forest. I paint a lot of them. And they are an absolute blast to do. But I think this one, I had a better composition with the mountain as a more dominant piece of the composition. And you live and learn. Now, here's the nice thing. I can do this identical composition again with everything laid out except the trees, and then do what I was just talking about now. They have two totally different paintings with the same beginning structure. So it's kind of cool the way that works. Okay, one of the things I did want to do with this is I've got the trees themselves, the base color I put in already, was a mixture of olive green, which is a nice dark green, and Payne's gray, which is an extremely dark blue. Now I'm putting in raw sienna. And I'm putting in the raw sienna to lighten it up a little and give it some green look to it. But I don't want it to be, see how bright that lemon yellow is? I didn't want it that bright. I am going to use some lemon yellow on some of those trees, not all of them, some of them, for a highlight. But I didn't want all of them to be that bright where you need sunglasses to, view the composition. And you'll see what I mean in a little bit. This painting did not take long. In real time, it was a little over 30 minutes. And like I said, it's an 11 by 14. So I wasn't trying to move fast, but I've done so many paintings in my career that it's just the speed is something I don't even think about. I just paint and it happens. Now, there are some compositions where it's a lot more complicated, where I intentionally have to spend more time in certain areas. But this was not one of them. This was a basic composition that was a lot of fun. I just regret putting in as many trees. If I would have put in only about 25% of those trees so I can see more of the mountain, I would have been happy. Okay, so I put on maybe about half of those trees, the yellow. And then I'm going to take a fan brush here in a second, and I'm going to tap the yellow into the raw sienna, olive green, and Payne's gray. And that's going to give me a nice green. That's going to be bright where it needs to be, but not on every one of them. And then that's going to help out a lot as far as the way it looks. And then this one's going to have some bluebells in it. And then some reddish flowers of some sort. They're not roses. I have no idea what they are, actually. They're wildflowers. But if you've seen any of my videos, I like putting wildflowers in. I love putting color into my work. I just like some paintings have an explosion of color. Others have just a little more subtlety to it. But I love having wildflowers in my landscapes. In our forest preserves and stuff, we have a lot of, they're actually considered weeds, the wildflowers. If they were in your front yard by your house, you probably wouldn't keep them. But in a landscape, forest preserves, wherever, they're so beautiful. And that's what I try to incorporate. Okay, so I got the opaque white in to get basically thicken up the water underpainting. And now I'm putting in some more French ultramarine to get it a little bluer where I need it to be. And then I'll tap in a little bit of water movement. The water was relatively easy on this one. I have struggled with it at times. Every once in a while, there's an element that you could just do in your sleep with your eyes closed. And then that identical element another day is just such a total pain in the neck. And I've not figured out why that is yet. Now, we're going to do the waves there, the water movement, identical to the way we did the clouds. I tapped them in with the fan brush. And I want to move the paint. I don't want to blend the paint into the water. And then you'll see the water lines where it gives the illusion of moving water, which is what you would have after a waterfall. It's rougher right at the falls, and then as it gets away, it's not as rough. See how I'm doing that? Now just diffuse the paint, put it going in a logical direction, and now it looks believable. Okay, now I'm putting in what's going to be the base for some flowers. The wildflowers today are Purple Lake with some white, and then French ultramarine blue and some white for the bluebonnets. And I'm going to put those in the midground and the foreground. And it's going to be a real nice, piece to really put it together. I think this is the last size 11 by 14 I have at the moment. I believe my next week video, next Sunday, I believe is going to be stretched linen, and it's going to be an 8 by 10. I'm not sure. That I gotta check my records. Here I am with the bluebells. Now, anybody that's seen any of my videos before, they would have heard me say, where you introduce one color, you put it somewhere else in your painting. And it just gives it harmony, color harmony. If it's only in one place, it looks like that's the only place it could have been. It doesn't look right. So if you put it in the foreground, put a little bit in the midground. The background is going to have everything so faint anyway. This one doesn't have a legit background other than the sky. So it's mainly midground, foreground. So you're going to have it more pronounced in the front than in the back. So that's the end of this painting. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider subscribing to my channel. And I hope everybody had a great weekend and you have a great work week.